All right, today we're cracking open the public health playbook. We're going to look at the global fight against communicable diseases not as just a bunch of random outbreaks, but as a coordinated campaign against a really persistent, invisible enemy. So, what's the first play?
Yeah, that really is the central question, isn't it? The little agents that cause these huge illnesses are totally microscopic, but their impact is just massive. So how in the world do you fight a foe you can't even see? Well, this is exactly where the work of our disease detectives begins.
So, chapter 1 in our playbook is all about reconnaissance. I mean, before you can fight an enemy, you have to know what it is, where it's coming from, and how it behaves. It's time to identify the threat.
This right here really connects two completely different worlds. On the left, you've got the agent, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, something you'd need a powerful microscope to even glimpse. But on the right, you see its very visible, very real effect, a chickenpox rash, something parents have unfortunately recognized for generations. And that's what public health is all about, bridging that gap between the invisible cause and the very real-world consequences.
So, to break it down, a communicable disease has a few key players. First, there's the infectious agent. The bug itself. It lives somewhere in a reservoir, which could be a person, an animal, maybe even the soil. Then it gets transmitted to a susceptible host. That's its journey to a new person it can infect. Understanding this chain is the absolute first step to breaking it. And these infectious agents are a really diverse bunch. I mean, we're talking about everything from viruses like the flu to bacteria like tuberculosis, but then you've also got protozoa like the tiny parasite that causes malaria, and even helminths, which are basically parasitic worms. And here's the thing, each one of these categories needs a totally different strategy to fight it. Okay, so once we've identified our enemy, the next play is the investigation. This is the world of epidemiology, which is really just the study of how disease moves through populations. And honestly, it's pure detective work. This is a perfect example of that detective work in action. Take a look at this cycle for malaria. It's not just some random illness. The parasite moves from a mosquito to a human, it develops inside the body, and then it gets picked up by another mosquito to keep the chain going. By mapping this entire journey out, investigators can pinpoint the weakest links and start asking the right questions. Okay, where can we intervene? Should we target the mosquito, or should we focus on treating the human?
This means epidemiologists are always asking three key questions. First, what's the source? Is it a person coughing, or is it a contaminated well? Second, how is it transmitted? Is it floating through the air, like measles, or is it carried by an insect, like a mosquito with dengue? And third, when is it communicable? Knowing if someone is contagious before they even show symptoms is absolutely critical for stopping an outbreak in its tracks.
Sometimes the source is hiding in plain sight. This quote about Typhoid Mary, her real name was Mary Mallon. She was a cook in the early 20th century, and she was a chronic carrier of typhoid fever. What that means is she felt perfectly healthy, but she was spreading the bacteria to all the families she cooked for. Her case is it's a wild story that shows just how challenging this detective work can be, especially when the source doesn't even know they're sick. So once we've identified the threat and we've tracked its movement, it's time for the counterattack. This next part of the playbook is all about building up our defenses and, fighting back. And our single most powerful weapon? Oh, without a doubt, it's vaccination. Just look at this number, 98%. 2 doses of the measles vaccine are 98% effective at preventing the disease. That is an unbelievably powerful shield, and it's really a testament to one of the greatest public health achievements in all of human history. But deploying that shield isn't always so straightforward. Take polio. For decades, we had 2 main vaccines. There was the Salk vaccine, an injection. It was incredibly safe, but also more expensive and not as great at stopping the virus from spreading through the gut. Then there was the Sabin oral vaccine. It was cheaper, way easier to give, and fantastic for stopping transmission. But in extremely rare cases, it could actually cause the very disease it was meant to prevent. So you see, public health officials constantly have to weigh these really complex trade-offs to choose the right tool for the job. Of course, our defenses are about so much more than just vaccines. I mean, things we might totally take for granted, like clean water and sanitation, are a frontline defense against diseases like cholera. Vector control, managing mosquito populations, is absolutely essential to fighting malaria. Even just finding and treating sick people breaks that chain of transmission. And simple health education empowers everyone to be part of the solution. And this brings us to the final chapter of our playbook, the long-term global strategy. Because winning individual battles is really important, but winning the war against a disease, well, that requires a coordinated international effort with a clear, ambitious goal.
And here's what that global strategy actually looks like in practice. This isn't just some vague hope to do better. It's a concrete roadmap from the World Health Organization, and it's aiming to reduce cholera deaths by a staggering 90% by 2030. And it involves everything we've talked about: surveillance, sanitation, vaccines, all of it as part of a coordinated, multi-pronged attack.
And we see the exact same approach for measles and rubella. This framework outlines a detailed plan to move beyond just controlling the disease and towards systematically eliminating it, with crystal clear priorities like better surveillance and getting vaccine uptake way up. Ultimately, the end game for any of these diseases is eradication. And that doesn't just mean 0 cases in one country. It means interrupting the transmission of that agent completely across the entire globe so that it can never come back. It's the final victory.
Humanity has only ever achieved this once with smallpox. We are incredibly close with polio. So the question we want to leave you with is this: using the playbook we've just opened, with all the tools and all the strategies we now have at our disposal, which invisible enemy should we, as a planet, unite to defeat next?